Welcome. This is Nuggets from the Book with Pastor DC. I'm here to start a series in the book of Genesis. And basically the concept behind Nuggets from the Book is going through each book of the Bible and trying to walk through it from chapter to chapter and give some context to the stories that are in the book, a lot of the items that are in the book. For those who are new believers or those who have never read the Bible from cover to cover, I hope this serves as an entertaining way for you to get some information about the Bible chapter by chapter, so that when you go back and read it, it makes even more sense to you and you get more context to what's going on. And once you listen to it, hopefully you'll commit to coming back and listening again and again and again, and even sharing that this information is even out there. And if you do, my prayer is that it's a blessing to you and it's a blessing to anybody else who listens to it. And I just want to get the word out there, the good news, and share just some nuggets from the book, from chapter to chapter. So let's dig in. We're going to start in the book of Genesis. Genesis is actually, if you look to define it, the word Genesis in the Greek means origin or beginning, and that was the title that was given to the book by the translators from the 3rd century BC. The Greek Old Testament was known as the Septuagint. The first word in the Hebrew text, Bereshit, means in the beginning, and that was used as the Hebrew name for the book. So one of the things about the book of Genesis is it is an account of creation, and it's an account of the creation of man and the creation of everything that God made for man. And I think that was, for me, a kind of a revelatory, unique perspective on it. So I'm no longer looking at it as I'm reading a book for information and it says God did this and God did that and God did this and God did that. Now I'm looking at it from the perspective of God wanted to create man. He needed a place for man. He needed resources for man. He needed specific things for man to live and thrive. And so with that in mind, he went back to the beginning and said, in order, I need to create an ecosystem that is designed to work for the man that I'm going to create. And then he started putting everything in place. So he had already known that he wanted to create man and what he wanted man to be and what he wanted man to do. And then he created the environment to allow man to do exactly what it is that he wanted him to be and to do. So as we dig into the book, chapter 1 says, and I'm going to read in the Amplified because it adds a little bit more coloring to the text. It says, in the beginning, God prepared, formed, and fashioned, and created the heavens and the earth. And the earth was without form, and it was an empty waste, and darkness was upon the face of the very great deep. And the Spirit of God was moving, hovering, brooding over the face of the waters. And I'll stop there. So it's verse 2. It says, earth was without form and an empty waste, and darkness was upon the face of the very great deep. So basically, there was nothing there. Imagine a room with all the lights out. It's pitch black. You can't see anything. It looks infinite by the eye because there's absolutely nothing there. So you can't see the beginning. You can't see the end. You can't even see inches in front of your face. So that's like what the great deep was. It was just a void. It wasn't even space. It was just a void. It was nothingness. And God was just moving around and hovering in that nothingness. he said that not only was he hovering and brooding, God was moving over the face of the waters. So before space, before anything else was put in place, there was waters. There was waters, or at least what they referred to as waters. Verse 3 says, and God said, let there be light, and there was light. So first there was emptiness and a great void, and then God said, let there be light. So now I'm going to shine some light into the place, into this great vast void. And he said there would be light. And then God saw in verse 4, he said, God saw that the light was good, suitable, pleasant, and he approved it. And God separated the light from the darkness. So now he created light, and then he separated light from the darkness so that light encapsulated an area, and darkness then was everywhere that light was not. There was a separation of light and dark. And so if you think about that, if you are in a dark room and you turn on the light, then everything is lit. Everything is lit. Everything within that space can be seen. So when he created light, he turned it from completely dark to completely light, and then he turned down the light so that it separated itself from the darkness and only hovered or encapsulated a certain sphere of space and time. Well, space, I would say, not time, not quite yet. Verse 5, and it says, and God called the light day, and the darkness he called night, and there was the evening and the morning one day. So when he said there was the evening and the morning of one day, now we see not only the presence of light, but now we see the presence of time. So time was not created until after he created light and dark and separated the two to create a period of time, or a certain amount of time for light and a certain amount of time for dark. Verse 6 says, and God said, let there be firmament, the expanse of the sky in the midst of the waters, and let it separate the waters below from the waters above. Verse 7, and God made the firmament, the expanse, and separated the waters which were under the expanse from the waters which were above the expanse, and it was so. And God called the firmament heavens, and there was the evening and the morning a second day. So now we see the heavens created, because remember, it was a void and a great deep, and it was light, and there was water, but then he separated water so that there could be water above and water below, and then he created the heavens, so there's water in the heavens and then water below the heavens, so that there's now a separation. And then that's how he ended the second day. And I think that that's beautiful to think of that way, because at this time he still hasn't mentioned the earth. He hasn't mentioned land. He hasn't mentioned anything. The only thing that exists at this time is the heavens and water below, light and dark. Time exists. So when we go down to verse 9, and it says, and God said, let the waters under the heaven be collected into one place of standing, and let the dry land appear, and it was so. So now it's interesting that he said, let the waters collect themselves. So the same way he did the light, bringing the light together so that it can be separated from the darkness, he's now separating the water from the land. And so because he's separating the water from the land, now earth has the ability to start to take shape. God called the dry land earth, and the accumulated water he called seas, and God saw that it was good, fitting, admirable, and he approved of it. And God said, let the earth put forth tender vegetation, plants yielding fruit, and fruit trees yielding fruit. Those seeds is in itself, each according to its kind upon the earth, and it was so. So now that God has separated water from land, now he's creating vegetation. He's creating trees and vegetation so that they can produce after his kind. Now, why would he need to do that? I mean, if he could just create it one time and it could never go away if he wanted to, but he was creating an ecosystem that adhered to the principles of time that he created. And we'll see that coming a little bit more as we continue. Verse 7 said, and the earth brought forth vegetation, plants yielding seed according to its own kind, and trees bearing fruit, which was in their seed, each according to its kind. And God then saw it was good, suitable, admirable, and he approved of it. And there was the evening and the morning of the third day, and God said, let there be lights in the expanse of the heavens to separate the day from the night, and let them be signs and tokens of God's provident care, and to mark seasons, days, and years. So now we see where time is being referenced based on days being established and the light and the dark being the median from which to judge, which I think is incredible. And he also mentioned seasons. So that means not only did he create day, night, days, months, years, he also created seasons so that for seed time and harvest, there's a time to plant, a time for cultivation, a time for harvest, a time for rest and replenishment, and then to start the cycle all over again. This is even in the account of Genesis in reference to how he created things. You can read into what you know of the knowledge of how things work and see how from the very beginning he was setting those things up. And I think that's incredibly awesome because he had to have a reason for all of these things to be prevalent. Verse 15 says, and let them be lights in the expanse of the sky, and to give light upon the earth, and it was so. And God made the two great lights, the greater light the sun to rule the day, and the lesser light the moon to rule the night. He also made the stars, and God then set them in the expanse of the heavens to give light upon the earth. So now in that sense, we can know that the heavens were present, but he also created space. He created the universes. He created all the stars at that time in the universes so that there would be light upon the earth. Some closer by, some further away, but there would always be light on the earth. No longer was it a great expanse of void. Now the void had color, had light. I think that's pretty awesome. Verse 19, and there was the evening and the morning of the fourth day. So by the fourth day, now God has created the universe, the earth. He created plants, trees. He created day and night, the seasons, all of that by the fourth day. Verse 20, and God said, let the waters bring forth abundantly a swarm of living creatures, and let the birds fly over the earth in the open expanse of the heavens. God created the great sea monsters and every living creature that moves, which the water brought forth abundantly according to their kind, and every winged bird according to its kind. And God saw that it was good, suitable, admirable, and he approved it. So now, once again, he created all of the fish of the sea, the dinosaurs, the fish, the whales, the sharks. Every fish that swims in the ocean was created. Every bird that flies in the air was created, but he created it in balance and in an ecosystem so that they would keep each other in balance. And then he said, God blessed them, saying, be fruitful, multiply, fill the waters in the sea, and let the fowl multiply in the earth. And that was the evening and the morning of the fifth day. And God said, let the earth bring forth living creatures according to their kind, livestock, creeping things, and wild beasts of the earth according to their kind, and it was so. And God made wild beasts of the earth according to their kind, and domestic animals according to their kinds, and everything that creepeth upon the earth according to its kind. And God saw that it was good, fitting, pleasant, and he approved it. So this is day 6. He created the animals. He created everything that creepeth upon the earth. And in verse 26 it says, God said, let us, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, make mankind in our image, after our likeness, and let them have complete authority over the fish of the sea, the birds of the air, and tame the beast, and over all of the earth, and over everything that creepeth upon the earth. So God created man in his own image, and in his likeness, and God created him, male and female, he created them. And God blessed them and said, be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, subdue it, using all of the vast resources in the service of God and man, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, the birds of the air, and over every living creature that moveth upon the earth. And God said, see, I have given you every plant yielding seed that is on the earth, that is on the face of all the land, and every tree with seed in its fruit, you shall have them for food. This is interesting. He said he gave us dominion over everything. He gave us every plant yielding seed on the face of the land, and every tree with the seed in its fruit, you shall have them for food. And to all the animals on the earth, and to every bird of the air, and to everything that creepeth on the ground, to everything in which there is breath of life, I have given every green plant for food, and it was so. So he not only provided food for us, he provided food for everything that creepeth upon the earth. But he said he had given all of those things for us to have dominion on everything in service of God and man. So he establishes in Genesis, even at our creation, that we have dominion over everything. And that everything that he created was for us in service of God and man. Verse 31, and God saw that everything that he had made, and he beholded, it was very good, suitable, pleasant, and he approved it completely. And there was evening and there was morning, a sixth day. So the creation account in chapter 1 really highlights everything that God did, and the reason that he did it, when you're thinking about everything was created and made for us, it was just really a run through of the account of everything in the order that it was done, and he did everything in 6 days. Now Genesis chapter 2 gives us some in-depth detail of what we just went through. It's a continuation and more detail into what happened. It doesn't specify, other than the 7th day, it doesn't specify all of the things that happened. But if he made men and women on day 6, the account of Adam has to be considered in day 6. Let's begin. Genesis chapter 2, it says, thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all the host of them. And on the 7th day God ended his work, and he had done and rested on the 7th day from all of his work that he had done. And God blessed it and spoke good of the seventh day, set it apart as his own, and hallowed it, because on it God rested from all of his work which he had created and done. Now this is the history of the heavens and the earth when they were created in the day that the Lord made the earth and the heavens, when no plant of the field was yet on the earth, and no herb of the field had yet sprung, for the Lord had not yet caused it to rain upon the earth. Thus was no man to till the ground. But there went up a mist, a fog, a vapor from the land, and watered the whole surface of the ground. And God formed man from the dust of the ground, and breathed into his nostrils the breath or spirit of life, and man became a living being. So he's saying, if we go back to verse 4, he says, when no plant of the field was yet in the earth, and no herb of the field had yet sprung up, for God had not yet caused it to rain upon the earth, and there was no man to till the ground, that is an indication that this is not after day 7. Because in the Genesis 1 account, there was a specific day when he created the trees and the herbs and the fruit and all of that. So this is a description of something that happened during the process of when it just generally said the God created the herbs bearing fruit and the trees bearing fruit. This is more of detailed specifics of what happened during that time. So as God created plant life, he caused the mist to rise up from the ground, a fog, a vapor, and it watered the surface. And when the surface was watered, then plants sprung up and trees sprung up and everything sprung up. And then when it came to the formation of man, he said, and then the Lord formed man from the dust of the ground, and breathed into his nostrils the breath or spirit of life, and man became a living being. Now that happened when he created man and woman. He created them. So this is not indicative to time. This is just indicative of how. And I thought that was interesting to look at it that way. And the Lord, verse 8, it says, and the Lord God planted a garden towards the east in Eden. And there he put the man whom he had formed, framed, and constituted. And out of the ground the Lord God made a grow every tree that is pleasant to the sight, in order to be desired, good and suitable and pleasant for food, the tree of life also in the center of the garden, and the garden of knowledge of the difference between good and evil, and blessings and calamity were also created. Now a river went out of Eden to water the garden, and from there it divided or became 4 rivers. The first was named Pison, and it is the one flowing around the whole of Halava, and that's where gold is. The gold of the land is of high quality. Bdellium pearl and onyx stones are there. The second river, named Gihon, it is the one flowing around the whole land of Cush. The third river, named Hiddekel, the Tigris, is the one flowing east of Assyria, and the fourth river is the Euphrates. So out of the garden, God created opportunities for these rivers to flow out and to water the garden and to spread out over the rest of the earth. The cool thing about this is it just tells you how the garden was set up. It gives you some sense in the world as to where it is and where it was, and even a mental picture of what was going on at the time. So you got water flowing into an area and then out into 4 seas. I'm pretty sure we can look on the map and try to find out where that could be. And the Lord God, verse 16, and the Lord God commanded the man, saying, you may freely eat of every tree of the garden, but the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and the blessings and calamities you should not eat. For in that day you will eat and you will surely die. Now I think this is an interesting point, because it says, in this day you will surely die. And what does that really mean? That means that your eyes of enlightenment will be opened and you will be separated from me by the knowledge that you gain. And this knowledge, this separation is called death. Right now, Adam and Eve, or Adam at this point, is in communion with God. He's with God every day. And because of that, he gets to commune with them, he gets to speak with them. But he's telling him, if you eat from this tree, if you are disobedient, that is going to cause us to be separated. And in that separation, you will surely die. Death will then be upon you. Now the Lord God said it's not good, sufficient, or satisfactory that man should be alone. So I will help him by giving him a helper meet, suitable and adaptable and complementary of him. Now for you men, this is what we should be looking for in our women. We should be looking for someone who is suitable, adaptable, and complementary to us. Not because they're supposed to be subservient, but because we have a purpose and a goal and a job that we're supposed to do. And in order for us to successfully accomplish that goal, if we are mindful that the person that we're linking ourselves up to is supposed to help us, that should be a main consideration before we fall in love and get physical and all of those things. We should evaluate, is she suitable? Is she adaptable? Is she complementary of me? And if the answer is no, then you need to find somebody who is. Because if we do what we're supposed to do as a man in finding the right woman, the woman will never have to worry about us doing the right thing by them, because they become an instrumental and integral part of who we are, and they become an extension of ourselves. And when God says, love thy neighbor as thyself, I know that accounts for the wife too. He said the two become one. So I should never consider part of myself below me. It should be equal to me. The physical attributes, the talents, gifts, and abilities should be utilized for the purpose of our survival in our interaction in this world. Which means that if you have a wife and she is good with money, then it would behoove you to let her handle the money while you go out and make the money. Because you two are one, and every decision that she makes is in conjunction with what you guys are working to accomplish. And so everything that she does is going to turn out for your good. That's just a side note. But I think it's important to highlight, in Genesis, it's telling us what was the consideration in the creation of Adam's mate for him, and it should be the same in our mate for us. Verse 19, it said, out of the ground the Lord formed every wild beast and living creature, and every in the field, and every bird of the air, and brought them to Adam to see what he would call them. And whatever Adam called every creature, that was his name. So now we're talking about the job that God gave Adam. Now he said it's not suitable for man to be alone, but it doesn't talk about the creation of the wife first. It talks about the job that God gave Adam. And Adam was working his job, and Adam gave the names to all of the livestock, to the birds of the air, and to every wild beast of the field. But for Adam there was not found a helper meet suitable, adaptable, and complementary to him. And the Lord God caused a deep sleep to fall upon Adam, And while he was asleep, he took out a portion of Adam, closed up his flesh. With that portion of his side that God had taken from the man, he built up and made into a woman, and he brought her to man. So it says God gave Adam, remember this, God gave Adam instruction of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, you should not eat. He said, then he gave him a job. Name all of these birds, fish, fowl, plants, trees, flowers, name everything. And Adam did it. And as Adam looked and said, there's no one suitable, God said, there's no one suitable for you. Now I'm going to put you to sleep after you finish the first part of your job, and I'm going to then cause or form a helpmeet for you that's suitable, complementary, and adaptable to you. And with that, he formed and created woman, and he brought her to Adam. And Adam said, this creature is now bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. She shall become woman because she was taken out of man. Therefore a man shall leave his mother. Listen, therefore a man shall leave his father and his mother and shall become united and cleave to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. Why? Because Adam and Eve were one flesh. And so when a man takes a wife, they become one flesh. And when they become one flesh, they are no longer tied to their parents. They are now independent, a unit unto God, fit and ready to do the work that God has called them to do. So once again it says, therefore a man shall leave his father and mother and shall become united and cleave to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. And the man and his wife were both naked and were not embarrassed or ashamed in each other's presence. That's the end of Genesis chapters 1 and 2. It's the account of the creation of the world and the creation of man. And as you can see, God had a purpose in mind when he was doing this. He was actually setting up and creating everything for man so that he could live and do what God called him to do. I hope this first segment of nuggets from the book is a blessing to you. This is the first one that I've done, so it may be a little bit rough, but hopefully you can get through it with me. And as we move forward, I'm sure it'll get smoother and I'll have better ideas. But it's been a blessing to do it. I thank you for listening. And once again, share it, like it, invite more people to get involved, and by all means, come back for the next installment. This is Pastor DC with Nuggets from the Book. Have a blessed one.